I think that I wanted to be a writer originally before I embarked on any of these jobs. And I certainly never intended to write about work. But after I graduated college, I wanted to find a job that was very stable, that I could use to write. It was always my goal to be a writer. And eventually I wound up doing the jobs that I described, because while I was looking for a good job, there were usually 100 other applicants every time I went to any of the interviews. And after a while, I realized that, the job that I was doing to provide for myself while I was looking for a job was probably the best job I was going to get. I think pretty much all the jobs that you're talking about, the decent jobs, the publishing jobs, they're all gotten through contacts, through people with friends. It's never really worth your while to start sending out your resumes, because nobody ever hires from that. These were jobs that were originally designed for people who were on the fringes of the workforce, either students or the elderly. But unfortunately now they're becoming the bulk of the workforce. There are so many statistics that people holding these jobs are actually the heads of families. These are primary incomes rather than additional incomes. And you usually need multiple jobs in order to even come close to surviving. I've noticed that people in France and in Germany and actually in Britain too tend to keep their jobs a lot more. And what happens in America has 4% unemployment, and the unemployment overseas, over here, is far higher. But in America you have, I would say, a good percentage of these jobs are these terrible jobs that I described, where nobody really cares what you've done before, nobody cares what kind of skills you have. They expect you not to last very long. And it's like this continual itinerant workforce which just moves around inside their own little circle. When people hire you for these low-wage jobs, all they're really interested in is whether or not you have a good haircut. And as a result, I always get a good haircut. and that's all they're interested in. They don't ask about your background. As long as you're relatively well-spoken and you can speak English and you don't have like heroin needle marks all over you, they will hire you. And it doesn't matter what the job is, whether or not you're competent. All they want is somebody who will appear to be the part. Sometimes you have to go to an office and just wait around for 4 or 5 hours. You go there at 4 in the morning when it's still dark out. And they'll come in and, maybe some homeowner, a lady needs her lawn cleaned, her leaves raked. And so they'll just shout out names that they have, because you fill in you fill out some paperwork when you go in. They shout out names and you go over to the lady's house for the day. But if you actually go to a private house, that's a very good day. But what's more likely is that the city government will hire you to do something like clean out sewer lines. And I remember one day, me and 3 other guys were, I didn't write about this in the book. We showed up and they had us, very dangerous, nasty work. They had us go down into a sewer and they gave us, little scrubbing pads, and we just had to scrub crap off the inside of the sewers for the entire day. And they can leave you in there and they don't have to pay you decent wages. Most of this work is generally done by city employees, but because they would have to pay the city employees so much because they're unionized, that they hire people off day labor forces to do that. And they save, and if you get sick, it's nothing to do with them, it's to do with the labor company that hired you. And they won't look after you either. Basically, every company works this way in America. There are no contracts. They can behave exactly as they please, but they put a lot of energy and effort into pretending that they're very concerned about the workers' rights. They set up these 900 numbers, 800 numbers you can call if you feel that you've been abused somehow, if you've been sexually abused, sexually harassed at work, or if people have made fun of your religion or something. But what actually happens is, if you call any of these numbers to complain about something, to complain about racial harassment or sexual harassment, or basically just to complain about anything that might have happened, they put your number into a database and they generally fire you very soon after. And they try to make it appear like your calling had nothing to do with the firing. So they wait around until you've done something which might serve as an excuse to get rid of you, like you come in half an hour late, and then they fire you for that. But there was a McDonald's actually in Maine where the employees began to speak about unionization. And what happened was the minute the corporate headquarters got word that one of their stores, just one store out of all the McDonald's, 4,000 McDonald's in America, the minute they heard that there was a possibility that these people would unionize and have some contractual rights, they closed the McDonald's and they destroyed the building within a week. And it's like, I think the reason I wrote the book is not because I wanted to describe crappy jobs. There are always terrible jobs, you know, and it's good to be able to make money from them. So sometimes if you're homeless or something, it's not bad to have these jobs. The thing that irritates me the most and that really inspired me to write the book was that they go to such an effort, these companies go to such an effort to create a myth of decency. They create this myth as if you're going to be treated well, as if there are all these protections you have. And the other thing I wanted to make, the other thing I would try to make very clear with the book is that all this is very, very recent. It's since 1980 that this has begun happening, which was actually the year I graduated from high school and the year Ronald Reagan became president. Back before 1980, it was quite possible to work at jobs. You know, you could work at a gas station and you could make enough to live. But since 1980, the average worker's wage has only doubled. And the average wage of a CEO, someone who's in charge of a company, has increased by a factor of 550. So all the money is definitely still there. It's just not going to us anymore. And since 1980, Congress, the US Congress, has voted 15 times not to raise the minimum wage. And they've also voted their own wages up. They've voted to increase the wages of people who work in Congress 5 times. So apparently what they think is that people who do these jobs don't need any more money, but they do. There's a great clip of George Bush, which is on the internet, and it's replayed. Everybody knows it now in America. He's talking to a woman who's an immigrant, and she's lived in America about 20 years. And she told him, "I work 3 jobs." And George Bush says, "Oh, you work 3 jobs? That's great. Like, this is a great accomplishment." Millions of people are homeless now in America. I would say almost 1 million people have lost their homes in the housing crisis, but you don't see it on the news. The only place I've learned about this is from the BBC on the internet. I think it's very important to the companies and also, by extension, to the media to ensure that there is no solidarity, to ensure that people who think like I do never communicate with other people who think like I do. And they do everything they can to kind of break it up. Now in America, all the media outlets are owned by companies, and companies have a very specific mindset. They're closing out more and more newspapers every day. So people who think, as I do, that there should be more unions and that workers should be better protected, get less and less representation. Even with the internet, they try to break it up. They monitor internet communication. You can't start a website talking about this without being discredited in the newspapers. Like the words communist, socialist, even though I'm not actually a socialist, I believe in the capitalist system, they've become very pejorative, very negative terms. What seems to be going on, I don't know if you actually see any of this incredible media circus that goes on in America, but they spend an awful lot of time focusing on non-issues. They talk about things like lapel pins, whether or not Barack Obama has a lapel pin, and whether he's friends with this guy named Jeremiah Wright, who's a crazy preacher. And this is virtually all they talk about. There is no media coverage, there's no analysis of his policies, there's no in-depth discussion of what this person is going to do once they're president. Somebody was interviewing Hillary Clinton recently, and they asked her, what's your favorite outfit? Do you like diamonds or pearls? And this was really the basis of the content of the entire interview. So it's very difficult for Americans to choose a candidate who would represent them, because the way I think Barack Obama will be a very good president, but I don't see the media really helping out describing his policies to the people so they can make an informed choice. You know, most of these politicians are basically corporate employees, and the companies own the media. Like General Electric owns NBC News. Most of these media outlets are owned by actual companies, and the companies cannot afford to have people have a revolutionized pay scale. And the result is obvious. What's happened, we're starting to see what's, you know, the chickens have come home to roost, more or less, because we're seeing all these people, more and more people are now working at jobs like I described, just trying to make ends meet. Nobody's working for a dream anymore. They're trying not to be evicted and to live on the street. I think, not to knock America too much, but I think it's basically becoming a socially retarded country. It's like, it's portrayed as being great opportunities for everybody, but in fact, it's really a small circle of rich people who are able to enjoy any of these benefits.
Je vous remercie.